What's up, everyone? Welcome back to DodgerHeads, presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Jeff Spiegel here in Reno, and today I get to chat with Alex Freedman, the play-by-play guy for the Oklahoma City Baseball Club, not Oklahoma City Dodgers. We're 3 games into the Reno series, and thank you for your time. Thanks for setting us up all week. How's the season treating you so far?
Oh, first, it's been a pleasure to have you out here. I know the guys certainly appreciate the coverage in this day and age. Teams, AAA teams, don't have their own beat writers or anything like that. So, and I'm sure all the fans have appreciated getting to hear the interviews. Hey, I've even used some of the content you've gotten before our games too. So thank you for being here first and foremost. But yeah, season, it's going well for the most part so far. You really just can't ask for a better group of coaches and players to be around. Everyone there is so great in the clubhouse and easy to work with. Certainly makes my life a lot easier. And, they've won more games than they've lost, which is always a good thing too.
Yeah, and remind the folks that are watching, myself included, so they do a first half, which just finished. Yep. They finished in second, and then basically everybody starts over in the second half of the AAA season, right?
Yeah, this started last year back in AAA, and it's happened at the lower levels of the minor leagues for several years now. So the total season is 150 games. You basically divide up the standings into 2 75-game segments. And, yeah, the winner of the first half was Sugar Land, the Astros affiliate. We won the first half last year, so that means you get to host the PCL Championship Series in September. So now, yes, like you said, the settings reset. You still have your overall record, of course, but the settings reset, and whoever has the best record after these next 75 games will face Sugar Land in the Championship Series.
Awesome. Well, let's talk this season. Obviously, for folks that are watching our show and follow the Dodgers, there's a lot of guys that were here that are now up there. There's a couple guys who were up there who are now down here. Let me start with, I think, the most prominent guy, the guy that I feel like we've ended up talking about every single day on our show, is Gavin Stone. He was down here for a bit, and last year, we know he struggled kind of up at the Dodgers, but also a little bit with Oklahoma City. There was some reports that he had a blister, messed with some mechanics. I mean, he has a 1.9 ERA over his last 11 starts at the major league level. Like, you've covered a little bit more, know a little bit more of the backstory, know a little bit more of the person. From everybody I've talked to who knows him, nobody's surprised that he kind of figured it out.
Absolutely. And I think last year, he took his lumps at times. He gets off to a decent start with us, goes up there, has a tough time of thing, kind of carries over. Think he realized and the decision makers realized he needed to rework his arsenal a little bit. Like you said, the toe issue that he really never, just knowing the personality, certainly would never bring up himself and would never mention and blame for his struggles. But once he was able to start incorporating that cutter, once starting to incorporate more of a 2-seam sinker fastball back again, that's when things really started to take off because everyone was just sitting basically fastball changeup. He wasn't landing the changeup for strikes like he had in the past. So that was another big factor. So to have all those things to come together, we're seeing the results of it right now. To watch him pitch a shutout the other day was just awesome. I think now he's finally getting some recognition for possible Rookie of the Year candidate. I think it took a while, but now he's getting that notion, so I think that's great.
Yeah, we were talking just on our show this week about, like, all-star voting coming up, and it's like, he's the 4th best ERA in the National League, and if it ticks up just a little bit of improvement, he'd be 3rd, and so it's a crazy thing. What's the reception like? One of the dynamics that I think sometimes we get glimpses into in the minor leagues is kind of how those complete game shutout type performances are received on a team like Oklahoma City. Like, are there guys here, I imagine, that get pretty excited when one of their own goes up to the major leagues and has a performance like that?
Absolutely. And a lot of these guys have played with, whether it's Gavin Stone or Miguel Vargas, and they become very close with each other as the years progress. So they're obviously very happy, to see their friends and their colleagues be able to have success at the biggest level.
Another pitcher, Landon Knack, who's probably spent a little bit more time down here than he has with the Dodgers. I think the question Dodgers fans are asking is what we're seeing sustainable with Knack? I've long been a guy who likes the profile of Knack as a command pitcher, a variety of pitches, and just the ability to kind of like be a floor raiser. So I've been super impressed and pleased with how he's pitched at the major league level. It's a much smaller sample size. Do you expect that he'll continue to find that sort of success?
The best thing I think I can do is compare it to last year when, like you said, it's a higher floor. It might not be the biggest ceiling. And again, I'm not an evaluator by any means. And, I don't work in the front office or anything like that. But at the end of 10 starts with Oklahoma City last year at a 2.5 ERA, and even though you watch the starts, you're not maybe blown away by the stuff, he clearly gets the job done.
Working, yeah.
So, whatever obviously it is that's happening in the big league level is doing well. I think for him and a lot of young pitchers is, well, what happens when he starts facing the same opponent a couple times? What happens when there's more video and data on him at the big league level that other teams can use? So that is yet to be determined, but obviously he's done a great job so far and hopefully keeps it going.
One other name at the Dodgers level before we talk about guys here is Andy Pages. And I don't even know how much you've actually gotten to see because I know he had the injury that wiped out. I think most people, myself included, expected you to get a full year's worth look at him this year. But he kind of exceeded all expectations. I think short term. I think people had hopes this would be the long term, but I don't know anybody that was expecting him to be this significant of a contributor at the major league level prior to the All-Star break of this year.
And like you said, he was an unknown because in his first game with us last year, unfortunately, hurts his shoulder and is done for the rest of the year. Now, talking with folks within the organization last year, they felt that him and Johnny DeLuca came to us at the same time last year, and they felt that Pages did have a little bit of a leg up on DeLuca, and he would be that next outfielder that got called up, but unfortunately had the shoulder issue. So he was definitely in favor, had been added to the 40-man roster in the offseason too. So, but yeah, like you said, when you miss 4 months the previous year and have barely played at AAA, I mean, he forced the Dodgers' hand. Just the way the start he got off to. The thing I didn't realize about him is how good he is defensively. He can play center and right, just great, and was putting together great at bats, and he certainly deserved it. And he's had his ups and downs at the big league levels. A lot of younger players are going to go through it, early on. But certainly he seems like he's been able to minimize the down periods.
Let's talk Oklahoma City now. Obviously, a number of names that Dodgers fans would recognize. We got some bullpen arms, JP Fire-Ice and Kyle Hurt, who have been up and come down. You've got James Outman, Diego Cartaya, if you're more River Ryan, if you're a prospect person. Just big picture. And I think I asked you this when we had you on the show a year or two ago. But your job to me is so interesting because of the breadth of guys that you have to have some level. Like, you've got to be familiar with basically the bottom 10 guys on the major league roster, the guys that happen to be in Oklahoma City today, as well as, the Diego Cartayas of the world, who are, it's sort of like only a matter of time before Dalton Rushing or whoever is the next guy up. So what's it been like this year? It may feel like abnormal, the number of transactions, and yet to you, you'd probably say this just kind of the norm nowadays.
Yeah, this year it's come in waves, which has been interesting. I mean, and when the waves have come, they've come big. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Dodgers are being more cognizant of pitcher workload and pitcher health at the big league level. I think they are really treating this season, and again, this is just my opinion, as more of a long-term play.
100%.
And if that means some more losses in the regular season, then so be it. And we saw there was a stretch in mid-May where they had 13 some odd straight games. We were playing in Sacramento. They were playing in San Francisco, very close by, and it was literally like a shuttle. I mean, they took 3 of our starters. They gave us a heads up at the beginning of the season, or the beginning of the series, to be like, this week we're going to be, plucking a lot of guys. There are a lot of smart people in the Dodgers front office that plan things a lot, and sometimes things won't go according to the plan you want, but sometimes it will. And that week it did, and they had everything plotted out. And, whether it was Eliezer Hernandez, Eduardo Salazar when he was still in the organization, Knack, I think, went up as well. So those times it can be tough, here at this level, to just try and find a way and survive and put guys on the field and compete. Overall, I think we're now looking at about the same amount of transactions we had at this same time last year. But again, when they've come in bunches, as opposed to 1 or 2 a week.
Well, I was joking with Travis, when Clayton Kershaw is supposed to start the opener of this series and then gets scratched, I joked with him. I was like, it's not like you're the Dodgers where you can just call up 3 guys after the bullpen game. It's kind of like, well, all hands on deck, and then we just cross our fingers. Especially, too, because on top of that, then you've got River Ryan, who's pitching in Game 3, but it's like, well, he went 3 2/3, which is the most he's thrown since coming back. So it's kind of like, hey, we want you to make do with the team you've got, but just a heads up, you're not always going to know who's starting. You don't have bullpen reinforcements available, and every once in a while, we're going to send a guy down to you and say, hey, by the way, he can only pitch 80 pitches or something like that. That makes his job, I think, difficult, and is probably the unique challenge, both in AAA, but probably even more uniquely for a team like the Dodgers, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And there are times where I'll tell you during a game, they'll get a call saying you can't use this reliever.
Because we need him, because we're planning on calling him up tomorrow or
Not
something.
just am planning, might.
Oh, wow.
Just might. So there's contingency plans in place all the time. So
Crazy.
yeah, sometimes they'll before games. Sometimes again they'll get word during a game that they can't use a certain reliever because he might be needed to go up to the big leagues. So yeah, it's tough right now. This rotation has two true starting pitchers, and Chris Valamont, who was signed out of independent ball to help fill a hole, and Justin Robleski, who just got here. You lose Landon Knack, Ben Kasparis out with injury. Recently, Nelson Lamet took an opt-out in his contract. So you mentioned River Ryan. He's building up. The guy on the day we're recording this, Alec Gamboa, and he's a 2-3 inning reliever. He's filling in a starting role. They're bullpen games. Christian Romero is a kid from high A Great Lakes who's made 2 starts with us. Who, hey, he's acquitted himself very well, but long term, he's not ready to be here quite yet. He's certainly a promising guy, I think, and he's done well, like I said. But in ideal circumstance, he's not making regular turns in AAA rotation at this point in his career. So yeah, it's a big challenge because, like you said, when someone gets hurt at the big league level, it's automatic. Usually, someone's coming from AAA. It's not automatic. Someone's coming from AA to replace them on the AAA roster. You just might have to play short. And like you said, you just kind of have to fill things, kind of patchwork the roster and line it together. And an added challenge this year, talking with farm director Will Rhymes, is the amount of the harder caps on the amount of players you can have in your system. And he says it has really hurt the amount of older players they're able to sign and have in their organization. And I think you see that across baseball. The rosters are getting younger across AAA for sure. And you just can't really plug those holes. Right now, it'd be great if they could sign a free agent, someone out of independent ball to fill a spot in the rotation. They just can't do it.
Yeah. Let me ask you 2 more questions. One is James Outman. It's a guy who spent a lot of time here, then went up, had a great season with the Dodgers, struggled at the beginning of the year. What change have you noticed about the Outman that maybe you saw 18 months ago versus the Outman of today?
Quite honestly, I don't think there really have been much changes. He's a very exciting player, an extremely athletic player. The biggest difference between 2022 and now is that when he was with us in 2022, he actually played mostly right field, not as much center field. Of course, last year was basically the everyday center fielder. And so it's the first time I've been able to see him in person play center field a lot more, which is just so incredibly exciting. I mean, we had a series in Albuquerque a few weeks ago, like here in Reno, huge field, very hitter friendly. And I mean, he just made only 3 or 4 just insane catches throughout that series, ones where he's just coming out of nowhere, chasing balls down in the gap. But I think the overall tool set is there, and everything I've heard and it definitely have observed myself is James certainly has not thrown himself a pity party when he got sent down. I think he realized that he wasn't performing at the big league level, and there were things that he had to work on. So whether it's Travis, we had Chris Woodward with us back in Oklahoma City last week, was really singing his praises, the way he's kind of attacked everything. He's out there every day, doing his defensive routine. I think James he's really the same guy. And hopefully I'm not smart enough to tell you what the little adjustments are that he needs to make to maybe have more consistent success at the big league level, but I don't think it's far off.
Last one. There's a lot of guys that names people would recognize in here, but there's also one of the things I love about coming to these games is the guys who maybe aren't showing up on prospect lists, and yet guys are having great seasons. Ryan Ward, Hunter Fiducia, guys like that. Is there, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, and maybe it's one of the guys I mentioned, but is there a name that maybe people that aren't familiar with the top 2 or 3 names on a prospect list wouldn't recognize, but you as a guy who gets to see this team every day, that just jumps out to you, impresses you as somebody who might surprise some folks moving forward?
Well, I'll give you 2.5 names, and I say half because he already went up, and that's Michael Peterson, who had been having an outstanding season. We saw him as an opponent last year with Albuquerque. Knew he threw hard, but sometimes the command could get a little wonky. But he certainly has kind of put that together this year. Just been absolutely lights out for us. 30 years old, finally gets a chance at the big league level. Going through Tommy John surgery. In a couple different organizations. So he was one that I'm glad he's getting his chance to be up there. The others, also in the bullpen, Michael Flynn, who completely off the radar. I mean, was signed as a minor league free agent last year in the Mariners organization between high and AA, but he was old, like 26, 27. A guy who'd been hurt kind of pitched throughout his career and never really put out a great season together, and he's just been awesome for us all year. You know, the velocity has gotten up on the fastball into the mid-90s, sweeping slider that I don't know if you were here for the game last night. You probably saw just got some really foolish swings and misses on it, just kind of takes a left turn as it gets to the plate. So he's someone I think that definitely can contribute at some point this year in the big league bullpen. And the guy I have to talk about is Drew Avens. I mean, he's been with us now for 4 years.
You mentioned it last time we talked too, I think.
Yeah, and my voice changes a little bit just because, gosh, everyone wants to see him in the big league so bad, and it's deserving. It's not a charity case or anything like that. Yeah, he's been anywhere between a 285 to 300 hitter with a 380, 390 on base for 4 years running at AAA. He's not going to put up huge power numbers, but he's going to find the gaps. He plays great defense, has the best arm in this league. I don't think that's even a question. Last year in the Baseball America Best Tools ballot among the league managers, hands down, best arm. And he makes some ridiculous throws from either right field or center field, can run. I was hopeful earlier this year when Jason Hayward got hurt. That was going to be his opportunity. They went with Taylor Trammell off waivers instead. But hopefully he gets a chance. This is his free agent year, and it's one of those where, if it's not going to be with the Dodgers, I hope someone else is with someone else eventually. I know the Dodgers do value him, of course. Everybody loves him. But gosh, I mean, we're all just rooting for him to get up there so bad.
Love it, love it. Well, let folks know, where can they find if they wanted to check out an Oklahoma City broadcast? MILB.com, is that right?
The MILB app is probably the easiest way, or MILB.com, like you said. We're on an iHeart media station, so you can get us through iHeart Radio as well. That's the audio only. You would search for 1340 The Game. When we're at home, of course, we're streaming on MILB TV, and all the games are also free on the Valley Live app. So when we're on the road, though, it's just audio. If you watch MILB TV, it's going to be the Reno broadcast or wherever we're playing. But yeah, that's the best way to do it, through the MILB app, I would say.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely,
I appreciate
Jeff.
it. Thanks for your help.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll keep staying tuned to the channel. Tons of content, interviews with guys that Alex has helped set up. So subscribe, ring the notification bell. We'll see you soon.